Welcome to the Theory of DFS podcast. I'm Jordan Cooper, the co-author of the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass you can find at theoryofdfs.com. Join with me as sometimes Neil Orfield from Stochastic, the high stakes podcast, the content, the NBA, NFL, MLB, tons of stuff you see there. The guy that also went on vacation. I went on vacation. You went on vacation. So how long was your vacation of not playing DFS?
Of not playing DFS, probably 4 or 5 days. So I was in Puerto Rico. I was not able to play DFS in Puerto Rico, which I didn't know going in. I probably wouldn't have played it all anyway. But so I missed 4 or 5 days. The only real bummer was I missed the first day of XFL. So, as somebody who was very excited about XFL, I was coming back from Puerto Rico on the day that XFL launched. So I missed that first huge 100,000 the first contest. I was pretty bummed about that. Luckily for me, I did not come back from my vacation with the black eye, just looking beat up. I did come back instead with just a horrible, the worst sunburn of my life. Growing up, I didn't even use suntan lotion, but this time I decided I'm going to put on this suntan spray or whatever you call it, sun blocking spray, and just be out in the sun. And of course, I just got so burnt, like it was awful. But at least I didn't get a black eye.
Sunbathing is not known in Minnesota, so.
I'm not a great sunbather, I guess. Not a lot of experience there. I did go to Mexico. I went to Mazatlan, Mexico. My grandparents had a house there growing up. So I went there like every year. So that was where most of my sunbathing experience comes from. But I usually just grew up. I'd get burnt, I'd get out of the sun, and then it would turn into a tan over time. This time I thought because I had the sun blocker on, I'd be okay to be in the sun longer. But by the time we left the beach, I was like, I need to fucking get out of here. It was awful.
Well, you see that my eyes gotten better.
You look much better, yeah.
Much better, right? That's what happens when you fall on your face. It'll take some time, right? I had to put a brace on my thumb. I got an X-ray. Nothing's broken or anything like that, but I was getting some pain here when I fell or anything like that. So it was harder with the brace on to scroll on my finger. I had to use my left hand for the phone and everything like that. But I mean, you could have played the XFL contest in Puerto Rico, just you couldn't enter the contests.
If I had entered it before I left, yeah.
So I can't believe you missed out. The one thing I wanted to talk to you about was XFL because...
Well, I played last week. So I played the Sunday-only contest of week 1, and then week 2 was last week, and of course I played a lot on that. So I'm ready to talk XFL. I love XFL DFS. Did you see my brag tweet about XFL DFS?
No, what's your brag tweet?
Oh, just before the first... On that first day, I tweeted out that I thought I was the winningest XFL DFS player of all time because there were only in 2020. So there was no DFS in the 90s version. And then in 2020, there were only 5 weeks. And there was only like 2 or 3 weeks where they had 100,000 the first contest. And of course, I took down one of the 4 or 5 times they had 100,000 the first. But then on top of that, I had like a second or a third. So I thought 120,000 or so up in 2020. I was probably the winningest of all time. And then Frankie Bourne came in and, of course, had won like 150,000 something in that time. So I was wrong.
But XFL, from what I see, like I'm not playing XFL DFS, but from what I could tell, no one knows anything. Like it seems like I've seen screenshots of like here's the 8 highest owned players, and they all suck, right? Like, and then you also have coach. I saw a coach say that it's like, yeah, we played these guys, and maybe they're the wrong guys. Maybe we don't play these guys next week.
I forget what the coach's name is, but yeah, they got crushed, and he was like, yeah, we're just going to switch things up. So now, week 3, really, we're not going to know anything, particularly with that team. Just like, are they going to go with all new people, all new personnel for the team? I don't know. I would say it's not as bad as like USFL in terms of nobody knows anything. Week 1, actually, it was pretty. I think the team that won was pretty chalky week 1 from what I saw. I didn't play in it again, but week 1, it seemed like the projections were relatively good for a sport that had, or a contest that nobody had done before, a league that nobody had seen before. Projections were relatively good week 1. It's still,
how do you even figure that out? I mean, how do you even assign target shares and rushing shares and like you don't know what team is good at all. You don't know. I know these teams have never played ever.
So from what I've gathered from listening to like Gajeski, I think I read something from Cody Main. Listening to those guys.
Justin Freeman, I think, lives in a
Justin
team's
Freeman.
locker room.
Yep. Yeah, those all the XFL thought leaders. I think it's a combination of like draft capital is a big part of it. Of like, okay, this guy was drafted first overall, he's probably going to be used. The funny thing is, like listening to Kajeski was like, okay, so this team drafted a wide receiver in the first round, and then they cut him. It's like so like draft capital even is like not all that valuable. The teams do put out like depth charts and stuff, so that is kind of helpful. Obviously. They I don't know, just gathering info from like beat reporters. They do have like beat reporters who have like 2,000 followers telling you like, okay, this guy didn't practice yesterday, or like this guy has passed this guy in the depth chart, and sometimes it's accurate and sometimes it's not. It's a shit show, but I'd say it's hit or miss. Like we do know some things I think already. But,
Have there been times on slates where a guy's like 70% owned and just doesn't play?
uh,
Was there
I
like high
don't
owned
know. I
guys where
don't.
it's like you thought he was the number one wide receiver
So
and then
yeah,
they end up running like 6 routes or something?
so I didn't actually look into the actual routes run data and stuff yet, but last week it was like Geronimo Allison, Martavis Bryant, some guys you may know from the NFL were some of the higher owned guys, and they did absolutely nothing. Like literally, I think maybe Martavis Bryant had 0 catches or 1 catch in the
What
game.
was it? Was
I
that an
don't
error
remember.
that I saw that he had negative touchdown?
Negative a touchdown?
He
I
had a
didn't see
negative
that. So
touchdown. Someone kept on posting that he actually had negative 6 points for a negative receiving touchdown. I thought maybe that was some XFL scoring, like, right? Because it's XFL. They have weird, rules and stuff like that. It's like, oh,
no, yeah,
did he
that's
score a
not real
touchdown for the
scoring.
wrong
Yeah.
team and you don't get points
No,
for that?
that was definitely a scoring error. That's not a real thing in the X. They do have very weird scoring, which I kind of learned as I went. Like the first game I watched was a team was down like more than 2 touchdowns, or like down 2 full touchdowns, and that's how I learned that they after you score a touchdown in the fourth quarter, you have the option of either doing an onside kick or taking it from like your own 25-yard line, and it's you're right away. It's a 4th and 15 situation for your team. So if you can convert on 4th and 15, you just get to keep the ball instead of doing an onside kick. So
But
they
that's
made that a
only in
little
the
bit
fourth
easier.
quarter. You can't do
Oh,
that.
fourth quarter, yeah.
Okay, so
I
that
still don't know all the rules.
right, so that obviously allows teams because most of the time you're not recovering an onside kick, and
Right,
it gives
gives you a
it
better chance.
a little bit more value of like, oh, if you're down by 3 touchdowns, it's not like a
Yeah, you're
lost
not dead.
cause with 3 minutes left in the game.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives teams a little bit more incentive and more opportunity to come back when you are down big late. So I've been
Are
really
there any
enjoying
rules in XFL that make the fantasy scoring, like the game flow for like stacking purposes, different?
not really off the top of my head. Maybe there are, but I can't think of any real rules that affect stacking. Like you still want to generally stack your quarterback with a receiver, and for me, it's like in XFL, it's just one receiver. I'm not trying to double stack because there's so little scoring that it's like it's unlikely that a team is going to be able to support 2 really high scores from multiple
Oh, so these
receivers.
games have low totals.
Yeah, the totals are like below 40 for like every game. Yeah,
That's not
it's
good for the extreme football league. I mean, you would think that for these
extremely
type
low scoring blender.
right, extremely low scoring. There you go, title, extremely low scoring. But obviously, if you're doing extremely low scoring, that does affect lineup construction. I mean, you mentioned the fact that like you're less inclined. Like, how many games are there? What, 4 games on a slate?
4 games a week. Yep. There's
Right,
only
you're
eight
less
teams.
inclined to like, oh, I'm going to go 3+2 with one
Yeah, yeah.
game
I don't
because
even require a run back. Yeah.
right. I don't even know if you have to require, dude. I mean, there could be low enough scoring that you may not even have to stack at all. I mean,
I know.
like
That's
the
yeah.
effect of the correlation doesn't matter as much.
And like the quarterback might be throwing to a player who is like literally like 0.1% owned. That has happened a few times. Like it's just so to that extent, yes, that we know so little that it's like week to week you can see players go off who are just barely owned at all because people it's
So why aren't we
I mean
playing those players?
we're trying to. But like this week I played a lot of. There's a guy Travis Johnson. So like I can't remember what team he's. I think San Antonio Brahmas, but I might be wrong about that. I played a lot of or Orlando, one of these teams. I tried taking advantage of some of those guys, and of course they were just not the one. Like the guys that I focused on, that I was like, okay, last week, the camera was on him a lot. He got a few balls thrown his way. It seems like he might be in line for more opportunity with somebody being out. And then it was just like, no, this other backup tight end instead is the guy who scored a touchdown. So, you can't really play all of those guys. There's still, or maybe you can, but you can't have too many lineups with all of those guys. So, yeah, you still have to be right in which of those guys you try to focus on. But yeah, I do think that the field screws up big time, and this was the case in 2020 too. It was like we'd have players who missed the first game. Like I think my big week when I took it down was week 2, and actually I don't think I benefited from this particular situation. But there was a situation where a player who was out week 1, there was like a wide receiver who missed week 1, and just nobody played him in week 2, and he was one of the guys who was like high on the depth chart and like had good draft capital, and just nobody played him because he missed week 1, and it was like I don't know if he's going to play. And like I was searching the guy's name on Twitter, and somebody said he's out on the field, looks like he's going to play, so I jammed him in, and then of course he did really well. DeAndre Tompkins, I believe, was the guy who did this in 2020 XFL. But I think we can find that like literally every week in the XFL. There are situations like that where there's just some player who, for some reason, nobody's playing them, and I think there's probably some opportunity.
Do these teams just have very large rotations? Is it the type of thing
Yeah.
where they have 6 wide receivers, they have 4 running backs, and at any moment, like whoever has the hot hand, just they go with, and you don't know from game to game what that's going to be.
Yeah, so that's part of it, and part of it is just that like the league's intention isn't always just about winning. Like the coaches, I think, want to showcase the players. Something like they want to give their players opportunities because these players are all there trying to get to the NFL. So like they'll say we're going to use this quarterback for the first half and then this other quarterback for the second half. Like they do weird things like that, and it might not even be because they think, okay, this player gives us the best competitive advantage. It's just I want to give my players an opportunity to show what they have to potentially make the NFL. So I think there's a lot of weird things going on in the XFL, and still there. I think their primary objective most of the time is to win. So like there is some predictability with it, but it's definitely more unpredictable than like the NFL, where you know exactly what the team is going to do. For some teams, like who are going to be the guys who are going to get who are going to run a lot of routes, see a lot of targets, that kind of stuff. You can't really predict that week to week in XFL.
Well, you also know that the teams are actually going to try to win.
Right. Yes.
Right. I mean, like that. I mean, that's that. I mean, look at NBA DFS. I mean, sometimes that's the biggest thing you have to decide on the slate on whether or not the Thunder want to win today or not. Right. I mean, like
I should congratulate you, Blender, on your retirement from NBA DFS. Have you played at all since our last show?
No.
Do you think you're retired or just taking the year off?
For NBA DFS? Yeah, I think I'm retired. I said, why am I going to bother with this? I'm waiting for MLB to come back. Right, I'll play. I'm playing soccer and MMA, so it's not like I'm not playing anything, right? But that's on a weekly basis, right? So it's like I'm pretty much playing like 2 slates a week. But that's from January, February, March, and then April through September. It's baseball every day. So I mean, there are plenty of people out there that just play NFL, right? And then maybe they play the showdowns, all the showdown, and once NFL season is over, DFS season is over for them. And some people just play NBA. Some people, I mean, you don't have to play everything. I mean, I talked to Eric last time, and he's playing college basketball, and I don't follow college basketball.
Episode, by the way, I did catch all the slander, calling me boring, talking about how you don't want to talk to me week to week. But I enjoyed the episode nonetheless. Good to see Eric back on the show.
I wanted to see if people liked you or Eric better.
It's a good. I mean, people obviously like Eric better. He's way more entertaining than I am. I think you can expect people to like Eric better, but Eric's not willing to do the show every week, so you get me.
At least I've met Eric in real life now.
Yeah, that was that a fun like little trip. Who else was there? I saw a little bit about it on Twitter. It looked like it was a good time for the road.
Yeah, who was there? A lot of the media people were there. The last time, like 3 years ago, it was a lot of the office staff and developers and stuff. But Dean was there. Squirrel Patrol was there. Cheese was there. Chief Justice Will Priester. Andy Means. Nice. Britt was there. Alan Lem. Keith Eister. Eyes 819 whatever. Then PSU fans. Sean Newsham. Fear My Turtle. Alex Harden.
I really put you on the spot here, didn't I? Like you don't want to leave anybody out.
Right, I almost don't want to leave anyone out. I was like, who did I talk to? Who did I see? Right, Stevie was there. Noto was there. Nice. Dan Bach was there. I mean,
wow. So a full crew. Where was this?
This is in Nashville.
And this was just what was the purpose? It was just like
a Super Bowl party. So basically, they had a whole weekend. So I came in on Saturday afternoon. They had like a happy hour, the Hattie B's Chicken or whatever at their new office. Hung out there. And then a lot of people went to Broadway and to all the bars and whatever. And then me and Squirrel Patrol were in the hotel lobby watching the UFC pay-per-view on our phones.
Of course.
And then the next day there was a pickleball tournament, which I
Yep.
fell that you get that, and then a Super Bowl party that they rented out like one of the rooms in like Nashville Underground bar or whatever, and they had catering in an open bar and the big screen for all the the Super Bowl festivities, right?
Nice. Sounds fun.
So there.
I'm hoping that we get another one of those for the stochastic team at some point. I missed last year. I had my conversation with Tom about going full time the week before the team met in Chicago, and at the end of the call, he was like, "Well, since you're going to be joining the team full time, you can go to like where people are getting together in Chicago if you want to go." And then I was just like, "Okay, if I get the offer before the weekend, maybe I'll consider going." But then the offer didn't come within that week, so I didn't end up going to Chicago with the team, and feel like I missed out. So
Did
hoping
they
we'll have
do a
something
yearly
again.
thing?
No, I think it was the first time they've done the like full team get together. So
Mm.
hopefully we can make it more regular.
Right. Well, I mean, the past 2 years for Roto Grinders because of COVID, they didn't do anything. So, like, I went to the Super Bowl party like right before COVID. That
Okay.
was 2020, and they didn't do another one till
So
last
is it
month.
typically a yearly thing for
Yeah,
rotogrinders?
yeah. Typically, they do it for the Super
Okay.
Bowl, and in the past before I was there, it was in Las Vegas or whatever. So, I mean,
Fun.
it's just everyone fly. I mean, everyone that wants to flies in or whatever, and of course, they pay for some of the stuff, right? So
And
it
it's
doesn't
been a
cost
change
you
of
much.
ownership over the past year, right? They've changed ownership at rotogrinders, so hope that
No,
they're still
no. I
doing
mean,
it.
no. It was 3 years ago. Better Collective bought
That was
them
3 years ago.
3.5 years ago. Yeah,
My God.
right. Like Cam and Cal technically are not part of the company at all anymore,
And it's
right?
been 3.5 years. I really thought that was like within the past year or two at
No,
most.
no. Cal was there. Cal was hanging out. Cal Spears was hanging out.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, but
Cool.
technically, he owns no part of the. I mean, Dan is in charge,
Yeah.
right? Dan's the CEO of Roto Grinders. But I mean, there's also that Better Collective Tennessee or USA or whatever. It's a whole bunch of conglomerates of sites and US bets and scores and odds and all these other properties and everything like that. So I mean, there were people from that type of stuff there as well. But I mean, that's a lot of it is sports betting now.
Yeah.
A lot of it is
Right.
sports betting.
Same with us. It's the way the industry is going. More and more sports betting.
Right, and you saw it's a monkey knife fight. No
I
longer.
did see that.
Bye
I
bye.
never played at Monkey Knife Fight, so I don't really care all that much. Were they the first of their kind, like these like
Yeah.
prop betting kinds of contests, like
I
kind
mean,
of
the
similar
first one
to
that got any traction, I guess. But I
yeah,
mean, that people were online were like, "Oh, monkey knife fight, oh, out of business," type of thing. It's like, "Oh, what's going to happen to underdog and prize picks and everything?" It's like, no, monkey knife fight was bought by Bally's. Okay,
right,
they were bought 2 years ago for $90 million, and Bally's foray into sports betting has been absolutely atrocious.
really,
They've just wasted a ton of money, gotten almost no market share, and they're at this Bally's, the corporation, is at the state of like they need to cut their losses in as many places as possible.
yeah.
And this was one, of them. This was Monkey Knife Fight was they're basically going to take a $90 million write off.
My
Just
God, yeah. They were. I
they're
thought they were filing bankruptcy. They also like Bally Sports North is the new TV station that covers the Timberwolves. So that's kind of a
well
they
that
got to
they're
pay
two
for
different
that.
Bally's. Remember, there's actually two different Bally's.
I did not know that.
Right. There's the Bally's Corporation and then Bally
Okay,
Sports.
okay,
So yeah, it's confusing, but whatever. But like Prize Picks was bought by Caesars. So like if
right,
Caesars is doing well, then Prize Picks will be fine, right?
right,
Underdog is its own entity. Underdog's not owned by anyone other
yeah,
than obviously the people that run Underdog. Uh so I mean, all these things but 10 years from now, there won't be like all these things. It'll be like there'll be FanDuel, DraftKings, and like two other, and everything will be bought out by one another.
you think
It'll
so?
be just like the airlines, right? You go, it's like you take a look 20 years ago. It's like, oh, there's 12 domestic airlines, and now there's like three or four, and that's about it
Yeah, I
because
suppose.
they have to consolidate. So I'm expecting like none of these like if if you had money on Monkey Knife Fight, it like just would they sent you an email or whatever. I mean, I didn't because I couldn't. I technically they didn't even operate in Kentucky.
Hmm.
Uh, they'll just withdraw your money and you're fine. And it's owned by a corporation. Your money's fine. Just like Prize Picks, it's like it's owned by Caesars.
Yeah,
Like the Caesars ain't it's not a back of the van operation. Worst
right.
case scenario, the Prize Picks platform goes down and they transfer your money to your Caesars sportsbook account or something like that, and you have to withdraw it from there or play it there or something like that. I have no problem. I'm a Caesars Rewards member for playing poker. They'll take care of me when it comes to Prize Picks, just in case. But if anything to be I think the smaller sites, like, is No House Advantage, is that owned by anyone or is that an independent operation?
It's an independent operation as far as I know.
Right. Because a lot of them, I can understand their business model is get some traction, get some users, and then sell themselves to a bigger entity. Yeah. But the only thing that I could say about, like, Monkey Knife Fight getting shuttered is that maybe it dries out some of the valuation of the independently operated sites from, Bally's took a $90 million bath on this, so other companies may not be willing to, like, okay, maybe it's not a good idea to overspend for the user base. Yeah. Right. It doesn't mean they can't operate. It's just that their exit strategy may be more limited than what they originally believed. Right. So like Underdog is I know they're gonna. You know what's gonna happen with Underdog? They're going to get bought out by FanDuel again and then had nothing to do it again. Like, they're just going to go through the cycle of building something for FanDuel to buy and not do anything with, and then rebuild the exact same thing over again.
Yeah, it seems like a profitable strategy. Just keep rebuilding, selling, rebuilding, selling. You got no competition because FanDuel doesn't do shit with it. Yeah, great business model.
Also, as far as industry news on this, I found it hilarious. It's the sports betting stuff is such a tell. Like, and I scroll through Twitter and I'm just, I just shake my head. It's just like, it's one of those things, Neil, that why don't say anything? Because then all you do, well, what's the quote of like the people think you're an idiot, and if when you open your mouth, you just remove all doubt, type of thing. Yeah. Like that they released, yesterday or the day before, the FanDuel Ohio numbers? Because it was the first month, right? February or whatever was the first month, or January, whatever it was. It was the first month of regulated sportsbook gambling in Ohio. So obviously, because it's regulated and everything, that they report for tax reasons, it showed like the handle for all the books and the revenue, basically the revenue and the whole, basically the hold, how much money they made, right? So they took in $200 million and they made, $40 million, right? That's a 20% hold, right? That's how you would calculate that. And so many people, these sports betting, like journalists, quote unquote, pundits, betting analysts, everything are going, wow, look at Ohio. 200 million. Look, they out-handled New Jersey, right? They out-handled New Jersey in their first month, right? 20% hold. It's like, wow, 20, which is monstrous. And it's like a lot of parlays, a lot of stuff like that. And I'm just sitting there going, do these people understand how, do they understand how this stuff gets calculated? Like, it's the first month in Ohio. You know how many deposit bonuses there are?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know how many first bet, free bet, risk free, whatever, especially FanDuel. Yeah. They give that out like it's candy, especially in the beginning. So is it really, did FanDuel have a $200 million handle? They were giving out up to $1,000 risk-free bets.
Yeah. So
if you go into FanDuel and you deposit $5 or whatever, I don't even know what it would be. You deposit whatever money you want and you get up to $1,000 free bet. They're calling that a handle. That's not real money, right? And then if you lose that free bet, what's the hold on that? There's no such thing as a hold. There's nothing hold. There was no money to hold in the first place.
Right.
So like the revenue, as far as the $40 million in revenue, that is the revenue. That it is how much they made, right? But even that number is that really how much they made? Because let's say you get a free bet and you lose it. Like, do they count that on the accountant in the books as money made? They
I don't
could,
know. Yeah.
right? Depending on how they do their accounting, they could. So like these
Yeah.
numbers are just like funny money numbers.
Right.
And there are people
Good.
actually commenting on this shit. There's people
Yeah.
going, "Oh, can you believe 20% hold? Oh, people must be making like, dude, all of this is fake money. Like, so much of this is fake money. What do we have to do? Like, FanDuel is spending so much. Oh, they have such a big market share. They're also the ones that are giving out the most amount of. I mean, dude,
Free
FanDuel is
stuff.
like FanDuel is trying is out promoting DraftKings, and DraftKings were known in the DFS space 2013, 2014 as shameful. Like, we're just going to
Yeah.
give away millions of dollars and
Yep.
try to just outspend everyone by so much more
Yeah.
that it seems like FanDuel is taking on their approach more than DraftKings is still, like the second biggest advertiser.
See, I don't see any of this here in Minnesota. I just don't see FanDuel advertisements because we don't have sports betting yet.
Right. Well, that's the reason. I see it a little bit more here because I'm just over the river from Indiana. So, I mean, the Louisville area, like if you live in the Indiana side, like you could do all that. You
can't do it in Louisville, but in Indiana,
right, because
they can
Louisville's in
sports bet.
Kentucky, right? So
Okay.
but it's Louisville. The metropolitan area is on the Ohio River, in between Indiana and Kentucky. So like, if I could go, because when I go play poker, I play in Indiana. I have to go over the bridge and then down 9 miles down a weird road, and then get to Caesars, Indiana. But once you get into Indiana, like crossing the bridge into Indiana, there's a bunch of billboards and everything. Like, it's like half of them are sports books. Half of them are like, it's just immediately. But once you go into Kentucky, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing in Louisville proper. But once you get into Indiana, it's like sign up for BetMGM, sign up for Caesars, sign up for PointsBet, sign up for whoever the hell it's there. And then obviously, since we have Caesars Indiana here, on your way to their casino, it's like sign up for your account, sign up for the Caesars Casino account, like all over the place type of thing. So like, I do see some of it, but as far as like the commercials on TV, number one, I don't watch linear TV often, right? But I mean, a lot of the commercials, like, it doesn't permeate the Louisville DMA as much because so much of the metropolitan area is in Kentucky and not in Indiana that it may not be worth it. It's like, oh yeah, like 80% of the people watching this right now can't even, like, they'll watch the commercial and not be able to even sign up on their phone because of location blocking. That it's like, what are we supposed to tell them? It's like, okay, go over the bridge. After watching this commercial, go take a drive, 10 minutes over the bridge, stop at exit 0 at that Waffle House that's right in the McDonald's little rest area or something like that, and then sign up and then drive back. Then anytime you want to bet $3 on the University of Kentucky, you're gonna have to do the same thing over and over and over again because you can't bet from where you're sitting.
I wonder if they're allowed to advertise that way. Be like, cross the border, you can bet in Indiana.
Why wouldn't?
I wonder if that's even. I don't know. I can't think interstate commerce. I don't know what the laws are in terms of interstate commerce there, but
it seems as far as advertising, most of the stuff is allowed.
Yeah, that's true.
We have pharmaceutical ads on television.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, there's but also you could tell that the laws for advertising for gambling stuff, just the pharmaceutical ads are ones where here's a 60-second pharmaceutical ad on your TV. The last 30 seconds is me quickly speed reading all the common side effects, right? You could get, if you're pregnant, don't do this. If you're that, the most common things are sneezing and wheezing and whatever. For the gambling stuff, this is how. Can we just have 1-800-GAMBLING as the number? Can we just have 1-800? Because at the end of every ad, they have to, for responsible gaming purposes, obviously, the FTC mandates for the advertising is that you have to list, what to call it for problematic gambling, right? For gambling addiction at the end. And most states have different numbers. And whatever state you're operating in, you got to list all of them. So it's like, I listen to like podcasts that are commonly sponsored by sportsbooks. And you'll see a fan, you free bet FanDuel. And then it's like the last 45 seconds is like, in West Virginia, call 1-877, blah, blah, blah. In Kansas, call blah, 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 blah. In New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New Hampshire, call blah, blah, blah. In this state, call blah, and that's like 30 seconds of the ad. It's just reading off all the numbers instead of just being just one number. Why can't it just be one number?
Our advertisers, we just have the 1-800-GAMBLER on all the stochastic stuff, and that's I honestly haven't paid close attention to the reasoning, but it's like in Ohio, you can't advertise without having that 1-800 some message that includes that number at the end of it. But it seems like it's just Ohio is the only place that we're really concerned about for our advertisements. But again,
I don't know who they come after. Do they come after the content creator, or they come after the advertiser?
I don't know.
I don't think these people don't have the time to do any of this shit anyway. I mean, you could probably not list anything in whatever. I mean, it's one of those things. The lawyers will tell you to do X, and how often does this get regulated? Like zero. Right. I think for you guys, for content creators, you'd be more concerned about what YouTube wants you to do rather than what the FTC wants you to do.
Right. But we do it on all written content as well as YouTube content.
Well, that's at least easy because people don't have to read that. They just you put it in fine print on the bottom and you say, okay, there you go, right? Right. But I mean, when you're just going through, it's like, okay, here's a read for whatever sports book, and then half the read is all the responsible gaming stuff, and of course they list all the responsible gaming. And then you see some of the ads that these sports books put out, and it's like the antithesis of responsible gaming.
Right.
Oh, you lost that bet? Why not come back for the second half? That's not responsible. Here's an 8-leg SGP of the day for you that has a 27% hold, right? And look, 1,700 of your friends also bet it. This isn't responsible game. That's the antithesis of what you should be doing.
Blender, I feel like we're burying the lead here a little bit. Do you see that those assholes at DraftKings got rid of late swap for MMA? Could not believe it.
I mean,
then we had the main card get canceled the last slate. So
right. I lost all my money.
Did you really?
Yeah, minus. Well, I mean, I only played 7 lineups or something, and 6 of them had the main event, and all of them didn't have Brendan Allen, who was the cheapest underdog that won. So I'm dead. Okay, minus 100% on the slate, and you don't see me complaining, right?
Yeah, that's No, I was very happy. I had stopped playing MMA completely when they had late swap. I was just like, I don't have the time on Saturdays. In particular on Saturdays, I'm not going to have the time to sit around. So did you play this
past Saturday?
Yeah, I played this past Saturday.
Okay, and you probably lost all your money also.
I didn't lose all my money. I lost maybe half of my entry fees. Okay. I was actually underweight to the field on the main contest. So that was I think 87% of people had somebody from the main fight on it. And I had 68% or something. So, I guess it wasn't. Didn't really hurt me that much, as far as I know. I didn't actually go back and look at if I had any live lineups that had fighters from that in it, but it was not the end of the world for me.
If randomly, I mean, getting to arguments online is fucking stupid. If we knew every slate that one fight would be canceled post lock, and you get a 0-4, what would be the difference between that and anything else? It's it's just as likely as you have a lineup with a 0 that I have a lineup with a 0. Of course, it sucks for that specific slate. But in general, it all evens out after whatever. But people can't think in terms of... People always think in terms of whatever slate is going on right now is the last DFS slate that ever exists. Right? So that means the importance of this slate matters over all else. Right? So, to having any conversation about it. And then having to say... I'm against late swap, even though it does provide me an edge. Right. It's I come across and I go, I would love late. From an edge perspective, the small field GPPs, tons of edge with late swap, and I don't mind doing. That's why I'm not going to do 100 lineups in the large field and have to manage that. But I'll play 6 to 10 lineups, small field, 5 lineups, something like that, and I think it's exploitable. But it's still more work. The past 2 slates that I played since coming back from vacation, so much more enjoyable. It's less edge. I still have an edge, dude. I made most of my money with no late swap, so it's I'm fine with the edge the way it is. And it's the site's locked. right? I see all the ownership for everything and go,
Yep.
okay, did I make good
How many
lineups or
dupes
bad
are there?
lineups?
Exactly. You know immediately. Like that's like half the fun is just learning. Did I make lineups that are not duped?
Right. And then once that's over, then you just turn on the event and you can go out and do whatever you want if you want to do that. But if you just
Yeah.
want to watch, it's just like, okay, time to watch. I don't have to worry. 9:20, got to swap this guy out. When did they schedule this next fight for? 30
Right.
minutes in advance. Like you constantly have to think of that. It's like, no, I got everything. We're just seeing how it plays out, and there you go. So there's still an edge in that. There's more of an
Beautiful
edge.
game.
Right.
Yeah.
Just
For
like
sure.
if NBA didn't have late swap, there'd still be an edge in NBA. There'd be less of
Do
an
you really
edge.
think that there's more of an edge in MMA with no late swap? I don't know if I'd go that far. That there's more edge with no late swap, just because.
No, I didn't say
Like,
that there was more edge.
oh,
I
okay.
didn't
I
say.
thought you
I
said
just
there's
said that
more.
that I already have enough edge with no late swap.
Yeah.
That
Right. You don't
it's-
need that additional edge.
Right. I
Yeah.
don't need. Do I want to do the additional work and the additional time for that additional edge? The answer could
If you're
maybe
a young
it's not worth
single
it to
guy,
me.
great. But yeah, no, me neither. Yeah, and that was your whole episode with Eric last week. The lifestyle EV. Going back to that conversation, like yeah, it's a huge lifestyle EV bump to not have to deal with late swap on Saturday, like all day in MMA, and having to think about what am I going to do if this fighter loses. And I'm glad to not have to deal with that mess anymore.
Right. Well, that's the same reason why I don't play an NBA DFS.
Yeah, for NBA DFS, I guess it's I get enjoyment out of it. Like I love making like going into. Of course, I guess I wouldn't be upset if they got rid of late swap either. I used to love it when it was we had late swap on DraftKings, we didn't have late swap on FanDuel, and I would make lineups. And I think I heard, I want to say there was one of the shows that Chess is Okay did. He was saying that you're wrong to hedge like when there was no late swap. I think, and I don't want to misquote him. I don't know if it's necessarily even him, but somebody whose opinion I respect said that they thought it was you would be wrong to hedge, like if there was a questionable player and that we didn't have late swap, to hedge and say in some lineups I think I'm going to make it as though this player's in some lineups I'm going to make it as though this player's out. And I disagree with that. Like I think that was and I often would just go one way or the other. I'm going to assume that.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. But neither matters. Now you're just talking about a risk management decision.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
you
a
can
risk
build a
management
lineup
decision.
with them. You could build a lineup without them. It's just obviously the
Right.
lineups will look different with different players and different projections and different ownerships. But like anytime anyone talks about like oh you're over the field under all that type of garbage, it's just like now you're just describing portfolios. There's no strategy to that. It's like is the lineup plus EV? Then play it. You're choosing to play one that has this player and using one that doesn't have. Is that hedging? It's like, no. It's just that the outcomes for each lineup are different. You realize your expected value differently in both lineups versus two lineups that are correlated to each other, where when you realize the EV of the lineup, it's both they go together. That's the only difference between those two things. So like I don't buy the thing of like, well, the questionable player, I'm gonna take a shot. I'm gonna play 80% of that guy when he's 5% owned. It's like play him in whatever lineups that seem. If you're playing 100 lineups and you're like, yeah, I want to have some with him, some without him, and just build those lineups accordingly. If you're gonna project the questionable player to have a big projection if they play, but they're gonna be 5% owned, then now you can play the chalk with that player, right? Because way under owned, and you're getting most of your leverage there. If you think the opposite, where the questionable guy is actually going to be over-owned, everyone's taking a shot on this guy because it's too much value, right? It's like, this guy projects for 9x if he plays, and then it turns out that he doesn't play. It's like, well, in the lineups that you don't have that guy, now you're playing, you already have the leverage there, and the ones that you have him in, you have to find leverage elsewhere. I mean, it's the same DFS puzzle no matter what. I think people get too consumed over... I have 20 lineups. What do I do? And it's like, well, just build one lineup that's plus EV. Then build a second lineup, and then you have 20 lineups. And it's like, do I really want 18 out of 20 to have this guy in it? Like, there's nothing wrong with that if all the individual lineups are plus EV. But you're like, from a risk management, you're like, nah, I'd rather not. I'd rather be a little bit more diversified. Okay, then do it.
And I guess so. What I was going to say is, back in the day, FanDuel, you could count on if a guy was questionable. nobody would play him, and also nobody would play the player who would benefit if he were out. Like people were just like, I'm not going to play that. My guess is that that would change actually if we had no late swap now for NBA DFS on FanDuel. But like that was back in the day. It was like I loved those scenarios where it was like, okay, we've got a questionable player in the late game, and I would make some lineups that had the questionable player in it, and I'd make some lineups that had his backup in it. And either way, one of those group sets of lineups is going to get a massive bump because somebody's going to, I mean, not as massive if the questionable player does play because they're probably, priced appropriately, whatever. But
Yeah, but you're
gonna
getting
get
them at lower ownership than
discount.
you should.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So you're getting a bump either way. Both of those, they're plus EV decisions, I think, on either side of it. My guess is though that would be people would be a little bit less risk averse now than they were back then, just because we do have enough good content out there, like kind of giving you these different scenarios. But I used to love when there was no late slot for NBA DFS, kind of making some of those riskier decisions.
Right. I remember doing it with the Sacramento Kings and Zach Randolph. Right? Because
Yeah,
sometimes
that
he
was
would
a while
play
ago.
and sometimes he wouldn't. But when he plays, he has a high usage.
Yeah.
And the Kings would always play at 10 o'clock at night, and you never know. So, like, sometimes you get a DMP and you get a 0, and sometimes you don't. But I'm saying there's still an edge. Like, if NBA had no late swap, I would play. I would build my
sure.
lineup
Just
7
done
o'clock
that.
and be done. Okay. If
Yep.
that's how much time it takes. And I'll roll with if LeBron is playing or Gobert is in or out, or you have to make that assessment beforehand, and everyone is at the same playing field. And if you get a 0,
so
so
we
be
talk
it.
about NBA, like late swap is, I would say, the biggest edge in NBA DFS for most of us, at least.
Right.
I think there are some people like Travis Petty. He was on, I think, Lowe's recently, and he said that it's not as big of an edge for him. And I agree with that. Like I think that Petty is just like so much of his game is figuring out the rotations and being different than other people's rotations. But for most of us, late swap is the biggest edge in NBA DFS. But also, if there were no late swap, it would just be a different type of edge. Just knowing that people are so risk averse, you can take advantage of that too. So I think I'd probably be okay with late swap going away too. I think I actually would maybe prefer that just and taking advantage of some of those situations.
But it's also weighing how much is the edge worth versus the time.
Right.
If I told you that, if I told you, Neil, there's this 2% edge that I know of, right? Which isn't that big of an edge, right? Nice little 2% edge, takes you 8 hours a day to do.
Right.
Like, is it worth
Back
it
to
for
that
you to
life
do
EV
it?
conversation. Yeah.
Right. Is it worth now to some people? That may be worth it to them. Maybe because they can't find 5% edges. That we're better players, right? We're on all these platforms and going, okay, I could do this here, I could do that there, found an edge there, and we're experienced with this. And some people may be like, no, I'm just going to grind out this 2% edge that other people aren't exploiting enough, and I'll take my $50 a day or something like that. Like,
right.
If that's worth it for you for that amount of time, then feel free to go do it. But it doesn't mean that it's worth it for my time, right? You have to put it into like picture you're a lawyer, right? You were a lawyer, to some degree, right?
To some degree, yeah.
To some degree. But let's say from what I gather, the biggest hourly fee is litigation, right? As far as like to actually go in court and say, Your Honor, I'm the like that litigation is the most.
Yeah, so I was never involved in that type of law, but that is my impression. Also, I can't speak from experience on this, but I think that sounds right.
Okay, but let's just say that when you could be a litigator and litigate 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week in litigation and charge $800 an hour or whatever the hell for litigation. But you could also do, research or something like that. Whatever they would do and that's $150 an hour. Like, if you could get 40 hours of litigation work, like why would you be doing the research? Like why would you be doing the research work? Right?
Right.
Now, if you only could get 10 hours of litigation time charged, you're not going to say, you may say that it's worth it to me, even though the other 30 hours in my week, I could do research for $150 an hour. It's just like, I make enough money. The other 10 hours in litigation that I'm just going to spend time with my family the other 30. Or you could choose the other 10 out of the 30 to say, okay, I'll do research the 10 and only work 20 hours a week. Or you could be the type that's like, I'm going to work 90 hours a week.
Right.
And
whenever I can get work, I'm going to do it.
If I get work and I'm going to make the most amount of money, of course, I'm just waking up, doing work, and going to sleep again. But there's no the same reason with that 2% edge. It's like, what is my time? What is my time? My time, not time, but just my time worth.
Right.
And
that it changes with age. And I mean,
right,
this is the whole conversation you had with Eric last week. Like, my
right,
time now is more valuable to me than it was when I was 25, and I would have worked much longer hours than now. I'm like, I'm going to do, what I need to do. And, I think I'm a fairly hard worker, so I'm going to work a good amount, but like, you got to find that balance for yourself. And for me, it's not going to be worth it to grind. I mean, I'm not grinding an NBA for 10, 12 hours a day. I'm starting my NBA process. Now it's a little different because I've started doing content on it, but I used to be like, I'll start listening to shows hour and 15 minutes before lock, and I'll be listening to them on 2x. But yeah, it's all a matter of perspective, I guess.
right. And it doesn't mean that, like, in MLB, doesn't mean that in MLB I will never late swap. Of course, no, I'll be late swapping in MLB.
Right.
Right. I'll be at the poker room going, what pitcher just got blown up or something like that, and maybe switch some of my lineups around. How much time does that take?
And also, I mean, like, even MLB, like, you and I will both late swap some. We'll late swap if, for example, a lineup comes out that's different than it should be. But I'm
Right.
not going in and grinding every single lineup and saying, oh, this lineup is behind. These guys aren't performing, so I'm going to put in riskier players elsewhere, to try to get to that min cash. Like, there are some
I do
MLB
some of that.
DFS
I do
Do you do
some
some
of
of
that.
that?
Yeah.
I don't do any of that. I only make swaps for, like, lineup comes out differently than expected, or if I have a very competitive lineup towards the top, then maybe I'll consider doing it. But I'm not going through lineup by lineup and making individual decisions on lineups where every batter's active personally.
Right. But I mean, it's less worthwhile to do so. But that's the time it takes me to do that in MLB is minimal. The time it would take me in NBA with every 15 minutes having to rerun projections and everything, I can't just do that on my phone in between poker hands. I mean, like,
I do it on my phone.
Right,
But
I can't accurately or anything like. If you're playing one lineup, sure, but like, I don't
I
want.
mean, I'm
That
not updating
4
the
hours.
projections myself.
I don't want to work for 4 hours for
Yeah,
that edge. Even though
yeah,
it's a good edge, I just don't want to do it. I don't mind working for 10 minutes on an once MLB locks at 7:05 Eastern or something. The most amount of work I'll be doing for the rest of the night is like 5 minutes. Right? Oh,
yeah,
Austin Barnes is in for Will Smith. Okay, got to change out this Dodger stack. And then it'll be
yeah,
like, oh, okay, my pitcher just got blown up, and I have the chalkiest stack in this lineup, so I'm gonna just switch to the Pirate stack and hope they go off and whatever, or whatever it could be. Or, oh, I got the 2% owned pitcher that just put up 30 points. Now I'm gonna switch on to the Dodgers chalk stack in the late game because I can, because of the pitch. Like, that's easy to do. I mean, to me, those are the easy things to do. You don't have to monitor. The projections aren't going to change. You're making decisions more based on game theory than
yeah.
on, well, this guy, two guys are out, and now if you don't play this guy, you're not going to get a million points. Like, that's a
Right.
different thing. You
Totally
constantly have
different
to
game.
monitor that.
Yeah,
Baseball, you're not going to get into a situation, right, where, let's say, worst case, the best case scenario is the guy that is batting ninth for the home team. Oh, they switched up the lineup. Now he's batting first,
yeah,
and he's 2,700. And it's like, oh, now he projects for like 1.5 points more median.
yeah.
Okay, but there's an edge, but it's not that. It's much different than, oh, the $3,600 player that you have projected for 18 minutes. He's now going to play 38 minutes.
Right.
And have twice the usage. It's like he's
every pro is going to have 90%.
right,
of this
right,
player.
and
Like,
right, and you need to monitor those situations. Like, you don't get that in MLB.
yeah,
Even in MLB, sometimes, let's say, oh, it's Jacob deGrom versus whoever, so now that the other opponent's batters are all priced down, and then Jacob deGrom gets scratched, and now it's going to be a gas can there. It's like, oh, now all these players are like 1,000 too cheap, but it's still baseball. Right.
Yeah,
They can still just put up 4 runs and it doesn't matter. Right. But it's not like NBA where the outcomes are so much normally distributed. Right. Baseball is so high variance as it is that I'm not going to be sitting there running. I need to reload the bat projections and rerun all my lineups. It's like, no, I'm just going to. Are there any outliers? If there's an 18% owned one-off that just hit 3 home runs in a game, it's like, well, do I have that guy in this lineup? No. Okay, let me try to min cash. Do I have this guy in this lineup? Okay, let me try to win first. Like, that's really what it comes down to, what I'd be doing late swap wise.
Right.
And the amount of time that takes on given scenarios is a grand total of 5 to 10 minutes in a night
Yeah.
versus NBA where seven. Okay, I got to run projections at right before the 7:30 lock, right before the 8 o'clock lock, right before the 8:30 lock, right before the 10:30, the 9:30 lock, and you're even if you're only doing that each for 5 minutes each, you need to be around. You need to be at a computer. You need to be, in a constant state of mind of like who's starting, who's in, what the lineups change, and everything. If that edge is worth it to you, then
Yeah.
do it.
All right, let
That's
me ask
fine.
you this, Blender. This might be an awkward question. Are you still doing NBA DFS content?
No.
Okay, so it's not an awkward question. That's good because I was gonna have to we're gonna have that conversation of like, do you need to be have money in the game? Because I believe you are a proponent of have money in the game on the things you're doing content about, right?
Yes. Yes. I
Okay,
mean, on the pregame show, I'm just doing general DFS strategy. I can put it in the context of an NBA slate, but
sure,
we're not going over like, oh, tonight's NBA slate. What's going on? Like, I
yeah,
don't do any of that. I mean, I do barely do that even when I am playing. I mean, but even for like
right,
MMA slates, like I did like the slate before the Volkanovski pay per view slate. I wasn't playing any lineups because I was going to Nashville. I know Scorer Patrol did anyway. I didn't do a show on that Friday because I wasn't
not
playing the
playing.
slate. I wasn't playing
Yeah,
the slate. I mean, like the reason why I do the content is because I've already put in the work of
right,
I'm thinking through everything because I'm putting money on it. So
yeah.
like
I
and
mean,
maybe I'm going in certain directions that maybe you're not going. Right? I'm just saying here's the outline. Here who's under owned, who's over owned, what constructions, how to get different, how to get less duplicated. You go through all of that, what
right,
the common constructions are, and then from there, feel free. There's thousands of lineups you could build. I'm going to build some of those lineups, and maybe you'll build other. I mean, and that
yeah,
is what it
yeah.
is. But how the hell would I really be compelled to know and studied about all that if I'm like, okay, let me just pull up this slate that I didn't have no idea what's going on. I don't know who the favorites are. I don't know what
Right.
the and like what type of show am I doing?
Exactly. No, I agree with you. It'd be a lot harder to do content if you're not doing. But actually, so part of the reason and what led me to asking that question was I was going to ask you, what is your favorite sport to do content about? Because now that I've started doing NBA content, as we're talking about like the differences between MLB and NBA, I can say pretty clearly for me, my least favorite type of content to do is MLB content, just because there's so little to talk about in my like. It's just like I'm stacking teams. I'm not. I don't know. To me, it's not.
There's so
And
little to
now
talk.
especially.
There's so little to talk about for any of the sports.
I mean,
There's
that is somewhat true, but like you can talk about like in NBA, you can talk about like the range of minutes that a player could play. That kind of thing is sort of interesting. Or like
well,
this
there's a lot
player,
more things in flux in NBA. So
yeah,
there's a
exactly,
lot more. Here's the injury report. What do we know and what don't we know? If this
yeah,
happens, maybe we leave a guard spot open past 8 o'clock.
exactly,
Just in, like there's
exactly.
stuff like
There's
that.
so many moving parts that it is
Right.
more interesting to me and it's more helpful to people. Whereas MLB, it's like I was accused last year a few times, and it was totally true that like you're just reading the top stacks tool. It's like what you're doing for or whatever the tool is for MLB, and I'm like, yeah, because that's how I play MLB DFS.
Right. Because
I'm not looking at
that's
individual batters. We have projections to tell me which batters are the best batters on this team, and then I use the top stacks tool to kind of tell me like which teams are going under owned or over owned, and like that's exactly how I play MLB DFS. So like people are like, you don't even talk about the batters and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, because
because it
I
doesn't
don't need to. I
matter.
don't
Because
research
it
the
doesn't
batters because
matter. Because
I
it
know,
doesn't
and then
matter.
but it's boring content because it doesn't matter because it's like, what am I going to tell you here? Like, it's just these are the stacks I like. You look at the projections; they'll tell you which batters are best from that stack. It's
Well,
it's not
that's
as
what do
fun.
you think I said? I tell people that. I said, what do you want? I'm just going to read the projections to you.
Yeah,
Like what? Just look at the projections. Build plus EV lineup. To me, the most interesting is the small option type stuff. So like would be like MMA showdown,
yep,
where it's a matter of
exactly.
oh
Me too.
we know what most people are going to do. How do we get different, especially in an aspect where there aren't many ways to get different? So you have to think like almost outside of the box
Yeah,
versus
I
like
was
a 13 game MLB slate. How are we going to get Coors is on the slate and it's going to be high? How are you going to get different? Well, you got 25 other teams to choose from.
right. Just don't
Like
play
that,
teams from course.
right? This,
Yeah,
right.
it's pretty
This,
simple.
how much? And then
I was asked about doing MMA content. Like, do you want to do our MMA live before lock? I know you play and stuff, and I was like, I do play. I guess it is similar in some ways to Showdown. I don't know anything about these fighters. Like, I've watched some of these fights at this point, but like Most of these fighters, I have no idea who they are. I don't know who the grapplers are, who are the wrestlers, who's going to knock somebody out. So I was like, I couldn't do MMA content. Otherwise, I do think it would be interesting.
But the thing about MMA is that I follow MMA enough now that I kind of do
Yeah.
know some
And
of the
maybe
fighters.
I will get there someday, but I'm not there yet. I'm just like, I know who some of the fighters are, but even like the ones I know, there are very few who I could tell you, he's a guy who can knock somebody out in the first round, and if he doesn't do it in the first round, he's going to lose his gas, and then he'll be
Yeah, but a lot of times
susceptible
you
in
can
the
tell
second
that
round.
from the betting lines anyway.
Yeah, I suppose, but
Right.
I don't have experience with that kind of stuff, so I declined just because I'm like, I don't think that I'd be a good analyst about MMA currently because I don't have enough experience.
But the same could be said about like Showdown, like NFL
Yeah,
Showdown. It's like, okay, this is what the game most likely is going to look like. How do we build a lineup for a 10-3 Snorefest, right? Or
right,
vice versa. Like you're thinking of like those types of things, and to me, that's more interesting than here's a 12-game MLB slate or NBA slate, or even a 12-game regular NFL slate. And it's like
right.
okay, just build plus EV lineups.
Yep.
What contest are you in? Here's the ownership number. Here's the projection number. Go and have fun.
Yep. Go make a good lineup. Congrats.
But that's really what it should be.
Yeah.
That's technically what the content should be. It should be 3 minutes long, right? And play whoever you want at the right ownership and projection number. It should be sponsored by FanDuel, and then the last 2 minutes are just reading off all the phone numbers for the
Yeah,
for
that's the
the
perfect
gambling
content.
addiction.
That's the perfect hour, or perfect, what, 5 minutes? Is that what we're
Right.
looking for?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Right. Same thing for sports betting. Like when people ask me, it's like, do you sports bet? I go, I mean, I do prize picks, I do underdog, and I would do sport prop betting if I didn't have to drive across the river to do it.
Yeah.
And is there a point of me doing that? Because I'd get limited. Like I'm expecting once
Right.
it's legal in Kentucky, then my accounts will be limited within 2 weeks, right? That
Yeah.
type of shit. So it may not even be worth it at that point. But it's like, okay, what props are you betting on? I'm like, anything where the projection is off from the number.
Right.
You go, well, what do you think so and so is going to do well? It's like, dude, like, what
Use the
sports
tool.
betting content could I do? There's no
Right.
sport. What could I? When baseball comes around and I do the underdog and prize picks like pitcher props, like, dude, I'm slamming them at 1 a.m. I'm slamming them
Right.
early in the morning I'm waking up, first thing in the morning, looking at the underdog ones, pre-morning, 1 a.m. for the prize pick stuff. By the time I'm talking to you now at 11 o'clock in the morning on the pregame show, there's nothing for me to tell you. All the value's gone. Bye.
Right.
So it's like, what prize pick should I? He said you should get up at 1 a.m. and bang the
Right.
ones that are off.
When the numbers come out, then you, sell
Right,
them
and bang
then.
the ones that are off. Well, how do I know they're off? It's like, well, subscribe to RotoGrinders. I mean, have a projection model and just look, and
Yeah.
you go, okay, this is off, and there you go, and they're welcome to prop betting.
Yep.
Yeah,
Fun
yeah,
game.
you have people that show up at like an hour before the game start, and they go, so what do you have today? It's like, what does it matter what I
Nothing
have?
that's available.
Nothing, you can't get them at the numbers I got them. So, but I want to tell you anyway because you're good. Like you don't even understand the concept of what you're doing here.
Right.
Like, I
But
don't
the
even want
numbers
to
have
give it
changed
to you.
enough that I would have a different bet. Yeah.
Right. I've Kevin Gausman over 5.5 strikeouts, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna put $50 on the over on that. It's like, yeah, but the over is
Right.
6.5 now.
Right.
It's like, yeah, but do you think he's going to throw a bunch of strikeouts? I don't think anything. All I know is that the projection says 7, and the total was 5.5 when I banged it. Now it's 6.5, so no, you're not getting enough value at minus 128 or something, whatever the fuck it happens to be. It's like, yeah, I'm getting a full strikeout over you, and of course these are the people that are like, so I lose, you win on 6 strikeouts, and I lose on 6 strikeouts. I still think Kevin Gausman's going to throw 7 or 8 strikes. Yeah, the difference between the times where he only throws 6 and I win and you lose, that's all the profit. That is
Right.
where all the
That's
profit
the
in
line
sports
right
betting
there.
is.
Yep. Thin lines.
And then I have to give him the numbers, right? 1-800-GAMBLING, 1-887 in Ohio, and whatever the
Yeah.
fuck it is, and all these
Riveting
other
content.
sites.
Should I be, so as somebody who doesn't, I mean, I guess we're in the same boat here where we don't have sports betting legal in our states. Should we be preparing ahead of time to like know how to not get limited and that kind of stuff? Like I don't I haven't done any kind of research. I know that that's part of it. It's like, don't get limited. Like you have
No,
to
you just have to build
work
it.
with other
If you
people.
want it, it depends on how much money you want to make in sports betting. You're
I
not
mean, I
going to
wanna
make
make all the
you're not
money.
going to make real money in prop betting.
Okay.
You're gonna have to beat sides and totals, and even then, you're gonna have to find accounts. Like 95% of the work in sports betting is getting fucking accounts. It's awful.
Right. But do I need to figure out how to do that ahead of time? Like, is that something that's
No,
gonna?
you're not. Are you really? You're gonna be running. You're gonna be running accounts, and it's accounting work. It's you
Okay.
need to get a.
Probably
Oh,
not. Probably not.
your brother-in-law needs to sign up an account and then give you the password, and then you control his account, and
Okay,
then
I
you're gonna
see.
give him 10% of your winnings, type of thing, and then you have to do that over and over and over and over
I
and
see.
over and over and over, and then you're gonna have to buy more phones, so you have more.
I don't want to do it. I'm
It's
not doing it.
right. That's
I
what I said.
rescind that question. I'm out.
Right. Prop betting, if you want to make some beer money, it's doable. Right?
All right.
If
I'll
you,
do
if you,
that.
if you there's enough books and enough promos, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, you can take
Yeah.
advantage of all the promos. Looking
Right.
forward
And
to
then
that.
you got sites like Underdog and Prize Picks and wherever to take advantage if you find something there. I already have Prize Picks in for MMA this week. Right? I mean, I just most of the time they're fight time props. Right? When they put out Prize Picks puts out fight time props before the fight times go up
Hmm.
on sports books, like the under one and a half, under the 1.5s to 2.5s.
Yeah.
So like a lot of times you could catch them where you're like, oh, they put up the fight time, 14.75 minutes, and it's like the fight to go to decision is currently like minus 185. So it's like, okay, over there.
Yeah.
Now maybe that line moves by the time, fight time comes around. Now it's minus 155 to go to decision. That's still a value there. And it's quite
Right.
possible that PricePicks just takes it off the board. Right? I've gotten ones where, I've done under 12 and a half minutes, and the next day it's down to under 10 minutes. Then by the end of the week
Wow.
it's under 8.5 minutes. And I have the under 12 and a half. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I got 4 minutes on the field, and give it to me. But that's why you got to get in early. Right? I mean, but
Yeah.
what content can you do for
Right.
this?
Get your
Other
bets in
than
early.
I could do content. Yes, if it's 1 a.m, I could do a 1 a.m. live 15-minute show of let's go on Prize Picks and let's compare them to the strikeout numbers to the projections.
Yeah, it's a struggle with any like type of betting related content that I found. Like I've done some no advantage shows on the versus the house, but like oftentimes, like I'm reading the best props and I'm pre-recording, so I'm telling people like what our tools are saying. These are the best props you can bet on, and then of course by the time it comes out, some of them are going to be removed. So I almost feel like it has to be a live show for the versus the house types of like prop betting type stuff. You need to do almost live shows because that's the only time people can bet the exact line that you're talking about.
Right, but you also have to realize that 95% of people watching don't understand any of this. They don't
Sure.
give a fuck. They're just like, what are
Right.
your bets? Okay, that's it.
Yeah. Unless the bet's being removed and then they're like, what the hell? You told me to do this bet and it's not there. Well, then they understand that it's not there and they don't like that.
Well, because the line doesn't exist. The bet's still there, but you have to bet it at a different number.
Probably in traditional sports betting. Yeah.
Yes. Anything else? Anything else new? Anything? Nothing?
It's been a little while. I think our last show might have been like before the Super Bowl. Yeah, nothing's all that new though, to be honest. In the past month or so, as we said, I've started doing NBA content. I had some trepidation about that, doing lineups while doing content, and also like that I've said before, NBA is the one sport where I feel more reliant on other people's content because like that's where I kind of learn about the minutes ranges, like because I don't pay attention day to day to like rotations and stuff. So I learn about that stuff from content people, but it's actually been an easier transition than I thought it would be to kind of be able to do that kind of stuff myself. So been enjoying it, actually doing some NBA content. Yeah, nothing else is new. Anything else new on your end?
No, no. I mean, just that my black eyes, my head is healed, and every.
You wearing makeup right now?
No, I'm not wearing any makeup.
Just all healed up. Okay. Wow.
I mean, it's not all healed up. I mean, you can still see a little. There's a little
Okay.
blackness. There's a little. But
Yeah.
that's what the doctor said. The doctor said it would take around 2 weeks or so to clear up, and it's been about 2 weeks or so, right? I mean, 2.5 weeks, I guess. Yeah, 2.5 weeks. So there. It looked worse than it was, right?
It did. It looked pretty bad. You looked
Right,
pretty
looked
beaten
pretty
up.
bad. Didn't hurt or anything. It's like it looks where it doesn't. I wouldn't if I didn't look at myself in the mirror. I wouldn't know that I have massive black eye or anything, right? Other than my thumb hurting a little, but I
Does it
got
still
that
hurt?
checked out, and
Good.
that there's nothing wrong with this. Apparently, there's nothing wrong there. So I'm good. I'm back. I could use my phone again with my thumb. Go play
Nice.
poker again. Because
Isn't that
even
like
playing
you just
poker
thummy
with the
thumbs?
ruffling the chips and everything, that would have hurt a little.
Yeah, I suppose.
So now I'll go back to my poker for and then did you get okay? Last thing, did you get your Apple stuff yet from the Onyx?
No, I got an email saying that they acknowledging that that was my order, and I got an email, and it said in the email, "We'll let you know when it ships, and it'll be like 8 to 10 weeks or
Yeah,
something
that's
like
what.
that." And I
Okay,
have
that's the
not
last. I
gotten.
just want to make sure because I saw other people getting their Onyx
I
rewards.
saw Britt got his watch. That's the
Right,
only one that I'm aware of. Yeah, so
right. So I'm
apparently it's
like,
just the
oh,
Apple stuff.
did they miss me or something? So like, I know that you got the deluxe Apple set
Yeah, yeah.
also. So I
No, I
figured
haven't gotten it.
to ask because I already got a case for the computer because I went on Amazon or whatever because I'm going to be using that as my lap because my wife already has that exact laptop.
Oh, funny.
So it's like
Huh.
she doesn't need a laptop and I don't have my old laptop is like a MacBook Air from like 2012 that I don't want to use or anything like that. It's because I have an iMac. So I have an iMac with multiple screen setups.
Okay.
So because I don't leave. If I'm leaving my house, I'm not. I can do anything I want on the phone. But if I'm going to be
Right.
like aggregating projections and stuff like that, playing baseball, if I was like at the poker room, like I want to have an actual laptop in order and bring that with me to in order
Yeah,
to
I mean
do
it's
that.
much easier.
So this
Yeah.
is giving. Would I have bought this on my own? Probably not. But
No.
they're sending. My wife's going to get the new phone. The iPad will be around. She'll have the AirPods and the watch. She'll have a new watch because she already
Yeah,
has a
my
watch.
wife's taking the iPods or whatever you
The
call them, the ear
AirPods.
or AirPods. Yeah, my wife's taking the AirPods. I'll probably sell most of it. I probably need a new Apple Watch, so I'll keep that one. I've been using a PC, so I don't want to get used to having to use the MacBook again. Yeah, I'll probably sell most of it.
Why not? Right?
It's just free money. Yeah, exactly right.
Just free money. Just free money. Uh, Player Q DFS on Twitter. Uh, who's next? I haven't listened to the latest episode of High Stakes. So you got any
So the
interesting
latest
people coming up?
Yeah, so the latest was Zach Graceful DFS on Twitter. He's a guy who took second in the MLB final for DraftKings for $500,000, and he's a single entry high stakes player who's had a lot of success there. Coming up next is Alex Santi is going to be my next guest. I
Okay.
know he's been a guest here as well. You know Alex. Yeah, should be fun.
If you ask him some live poker stuff.
Oh, is he a live poker player? I didn't
No,
realize
no, he
that.
wasn't. But I mean, after he sees how my live poker exploits, he plays online. So I know
Okay,
he's gone to to in Chicago to play live once in a blue moon or like recently,
yeah,
and I want to see if he's continuing to do so after seeing like why he's sitting at home and trying to grind out this when you could just go there and easier get
right.
more money, right?
Yeah, interesting. I'll
Okay,
ask him.
so you can get that at the High Stakes DFS podcast feed on Stochastic, and as always, you get the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports 15-hour audio DFS masterclass at theoryofdfs.com.